Hello and welcome to Dog Days, where we talk about all things cannabis. I'm your hostess with the mostest, Holly B. Today I have someone special who I am fortunate to call my friend in the doghouse. Miss Hunter Buffington is the Director of Agriculture Policy Solutions, APS, which provides solutions for ag innovators based out of Colorado. Welcome to the doghouse.
Thanks for having me, Holly. I'm excited to be here. So happy to be your friend in the doghouse and to help launch this new location for your podcast. I love it.
Thank you so much. I've been itching to have you on the show. I had you all lined up and then I kind of changed platforms. I'm now with Whiskey Weed TV and Citizen Green TV. And everybody's just been so awesome. And I'm glad that you are here in one of the flagship new episodes to kick things off. So I'm really happy that you're here with me right now.
I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to catch your listeners up with all things Farm Bill. It's Farm Bill season. It's usually the kind of thing that lasts for a really long time. It has its ups and downs. It's kind of like watching your second favorite soap opera, right? But I definitely have some good news, and there's been some pressed pause moments that I think we can talk about and help your listeners understand. They're going to be good for us and hopefully get us a Farm Bill in 2025. So I kind of let the cat out of the bag a little bit there, but I'll explain why I think it's going to be the case.
Awesome. So first of all, let's kind of rewind a little bit and tell me about Hunter Buffington and your organization, Agriculture Policy Solutions, because you guys are doing really important work for farmers.
Thanks for that, Holly. And my background comes from a lot of years in sustainable development, but we also share the home state of Wyoming. So I grew up in agriculture, was a 4-H'er and an FFA'er, right? Raised hogs and some chickens, some turkeys. Hogs were really my best show animal, and then trained a lot of horses. And I used to say that I chased cows, but anybody that's actually pushed any kind of cattle herd anywhere knows it's just one. It's always one cow that is the naughty one. So I had to amend my statement, but unless you've actually done that, it's hard to say that you pushed cow and have anybody understand it. So, and APS was really kind of coming back to our roots after being the executive director for some hemp-focused nonprofits. We really realized that there was a huge change happening across the agriculture sector. And so many of the farmers that I was already working with were very motivated by regenerative agriculture practices. They'd committed, seen huge benefits, not to mention climate smart agriculture came out the door, and everybody said, well, how do we access these funds? How do we even understand what climate smart agriculture is? And that's where myself and my business partners said, well, we, having a very strong agriculture background, Tillery comes from like 8 generations of farmers. Jessica comes from a homesteading family. I'm embedded in a livestock agriculture background. And we just felt like there weren't enough people that were enthusiastic about the changes that were happening that could really help the farmers to weather that storm and make those transitions. Because while the USDA is very invested and excited about these transitions, they don't necessarily help us make them, right? A 3-year change to go from a traditional monoculture agriculture production into regenerative farming. So there's always risks, right? Farmers are the bravest people I know to continue doing that work. But you guys are the first ones to take the risks. You're the last ones to reap the benefits, in my opinion. And so my background in policy work has really always been to protect farmers and keep you guys farming. Like I said, it's such a difficult job. So that's what APS really does. And then we work a lot on the animal feed sector. Some of you know about the hemp seed meal for laying hens. There's a little bit of excitement around that application, but it's coming really soon. and what does that mean for the sector? And then really, like I said, how do we keep the farmer in the Farm Bill, which is what we're going to talk about today.
Yes, absolutely. That this Farm Bill, there are some serious concerns with this one coming out. Do you just want to start from the beginning with the Farm Bill and what's going on?
Yeah. And I think one thing that's really great to let everybody know is that, first of all, hemp was in the Farm Bill. So for your listeners that are really invested on the industrial hemp side of the industry, there was quite a lot that we actually won. One of my favorite things that we got was language that would remove the felony ban for people to get licensed for hemp production and cultivation, right? That has been a huge lift. And we're excited to see that, especially from a Republican House-led piece of legislation. If it's coming out in the House, as conservative as they are, we're much happier and think positively that it's going to come through the Senate. The other thing that we're going to spend a little bit more time talking about, because this has been kind of on the radar, but there's always seems to be some contention in the hemp industry, right? A little bit of self-serving, which helps to drive a lot of the policy making. Did I? Yeah. I said I'm live. It's too late to take it back, but it's true. We know. I'm just making a joke. No, policy is nothing but self-serving. I feel like in these days. So
yeah, exactly.
Being able to
say nothing's off limits here. You can say whatever you like to say. Let it all out, girl.
I mean, if I don't, my head would explode and it'd be a very short segment. So what I really mean by that is when we started talking about testing, there was part of the industry that said, we want to remove all of the testing for all things grain and fiber. And then leave the rest of cultivation practices. Remember, this is dual cropping, this is whole plant, this is flower production, with nothing to help not only the regulators, right, or the farmers to navigate that. They said, we're only going to focus on this. And that's wonderful for 2/3 of our industry. But so much of my concern in the Farm Bill, and what I would share with your listeners, you guys are really critically important to help people understand that D8 is a segment of the industry, but that is, in my opinion, it's very much the THC side of the industry. So our hemp industry is getting a backlash from these semi-synthetic products that are made with better living through chemistry. This is not our hemp that we cut our teeth in this country on, that we made our flag on, that we wrote the Declaration of Independence on. That is not part of the D8 scene or market, which it's massive. It's billions of dollars now. So we're always having to pay attention to what is hemp and make sure that we're still able to keep our farmers farming, right? So
yes,
lowering testing is wonderful. We really did need to do that. And the mechanism for how was really the big problem. And so my farmers and I spent a lot of time putting together Farm Bill recommendations. I am very attracted to a fit for purpose model, which is about end products. So it allows farmers to think more about all of their margins, not just is it grain or fiber or flour. It opens a door for multiple value chain products through hemp cultivation. So that's really what we wanted to propose. And one thing that I will say, working in policy and regulation, is compromise. It's something that is intended to be uncomfortable, right? Like if nobody gets everything they want, but everybody gets something they want, that's a very good compromise. And for one of the first experiences in my political career, well, my policy career, not political, policy career, I think we achieved some really good.
I think you might be onto something there, Hunter.
No, that just gives me
Hunter
so
for
much
president.
anxiety.
I like that has a nice ring to it. Or Congress.
Holly, I mean,
or something. Mayor.
Well, give me 20 years, and maybe we can revisit it. But what we were able to get in the Farm Bill was a bifurcation of hemp as a specialty crop and then grain and fiber. And while the primary focus is in fact on testing and removing testing for grain and fiber, what it did is it also encouraged certified seed. So by encouraging certified seed, it looks more like other agriculture commodities. It's protection for the farmers, because if you're going to plant thousands of acres of anything, you really want to know that you've got proven genetics that are going to work for you. And my friends, we've had 10 years, right? So 10 years to get proven right in all these products is not long. So
No,
that
not.
support of having certified seed is going to be right. So some of the big, now you may be asking yourself, what does that mean for cannabinoid hemp? And this is a term that is not my favorite, but it certainly seems to have become the nomenclature in the Farm Bill. So the divisions specifically are industrial hemp, for fiber, stock, all the things that we would typically consider fiber, and then grain plus all the byproducts, and then immature plants. So immature plants fall under that industrial use. So if you're growing for microgreens, you have limited amount of testing, or if you're growing for clones, which are not cannabinoid producing at that point in time. So those are great things for that side of the industry. On the cannabinoid side, right, this is where it starts to get a little bit exciting. The definition itself is hemp grown for cannabinoid extraction, means any hemp grown for purposes of extracting cannabinoids intended for human or animal consumption, inhalation, or topical use. Okay, so I want to pause right there and say, Holly, what does that immediately make you think of, right? Does that make you a little nervous about your lotions and your whole plant tinctures and the things that are not THC?
Yes, absolutely. It sure does.
Yeah. Okay. So definitely, my friends tell me all the time that this is great job security, but that's really not what I'm hoping to do with my career, is have a lot of job security. Rather, I'd like to get some things done that will definitely protect our farmers. So like all things with the compromise, we got some great wins, at least for the industrial side, and then clearly have some work to do on the cannabinoid side. But in general, inspections, reporting, testing, all of that is really going to be a big relief for most of the industrial farmers out there. Most of the farmers that I represent are your typical row crop, broadacre outdoor producers. My folks are not the ones they're necessarily in greenhouses. So this is where I'm speaking from. I just want to share my own bias, right? This is where my people are. So that's all great news. It allows the Department of Agriculture to do testings, and it also puts forth a laboratory accreditation. So this, my friends, is another big win for us, where it's not DEA labs. Yay!
Oh my God.
Wow. Okay, so we really, there's some pretty big wins in this, but there's some obvious things that happened right at the end of the Farm Bill approval process. So maybe that's what we should talk about a little bit, is how the Farm Bill works through to actually get approved. Do you think that would be good, Holly?
I think that would be fantastic. Let's go ahead and start from the very basics. What I'm going to do right now, however, is let's take a real quick break. I have a co-host who has a dispensary, and so I run his ad just to, kind of help him out, the partnership that I have with him. So I'm going to read this ad real quick, and then we'll come right back and we'll delve into the ABCs of legislation and the Farm Bill and what that means, how it gets started, how it's going, that sort of thing. So we will be right back.
Ethereal Gold Dispensary, the best kept secret around. Legal cannabis, mushrooms, and more straight to your doorstep. Each product is meticulously tested, setting the ethereal gold standard nationwide. And we're not just in it for the greenbacks, folks. We honor our troops and veterans with a special discount. Plus, 2% of every purchase goes to local charities. Visit etherealgolddispensary.com and use the code RADIOHIGH for 15% off. Enjoy yourselves, my friends.
And we're back, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We are chatting with Miss Hunter Buffington, who is an industrial hemp policy and supply chain expert. And she has taken time out of her very busy schedule and very busy hemp life to join us here and walk us through the Farm Bill and what that means to hemp farmers like myself. So go ahead, Hunter. Go ahead and take it away.
All right. So, and please forgive me, anyone that is in high school civics, because it's been a little while, but you guys will probably be able to explain this even more thoroughly than I can. But generally, what happens with the Farm Bill is that it's going to alternate where it starts. So this year, it's starting on the House side. In 4 years, we hope it would then start on the Senate side. It starts in the Agriculture Committee for the House or the Senate. And then it's literally built primarily by the staffers, right? Our legislators are expected to be experts on and just an incredible amount of information and policy. And without those staffers, there's just no way that they would be able to be experts and make these kinds of decisions. So first of all, my thanks to all the staffers out there that we work with that make farm bills and other large pieces of legislation happen. So it goes through the House side. So I'm just going to use that as an example. So it's gone through the Agriculture Committee. It also has to go through a Finance Committee. Sometimes that Finance Committee is wrapped up in budget. It depends on where the Congress is at that point in time. Now, because this was supposed to be the 2024 Farm Bill, and we're rapidly reaching the end of any work coming out of our legislature in 24. It's definitely going to be the 2025 Farm Bill, and I'll explain why and why that opinion is shared amongst my colleagues. But then it has to go to the floor, right? From the floor, once it's approved, then it will go to the other side of Congress and go through the same process. So where the Farm Bill is right now is it came out of committee, much like what I shared with you guys. There were not a lot of changes, but that's because Representative Thompson is very strong and has a lot of political capital. So he was really able to toe that line through all of the committees. The last committee, Agriculture Committee, this is, again, before it goes to the House floor, some very interesting things happened. So one of the things that happened is there are a lot of amendments, and the amendment phase is pretty typical, especially in the committee. That's really where most of the amendments happen, because they're trying to get everyone to line up on the floor, right? They want to make sure that they've got enough votes to pass. So they've been working it on the floor for months now before it goes to this committee. And in those conversations is where we get to see the amendments coming, where there's pain points and where there's political alignment. I think all of us knew something was going to be happening. There was a lot of conversations about changing the definition. How do we start to really in this market that doesn't have any regulatory? Again, that's the DA, the HHE. But there's just so many of them. Something works, but nobody really knows until we see it in final form. And we've talked about this, Holly, where sometimes the final form, you still get a surprise the day that it goes to the committee. So you're working on something months in advance, and then you show up for a committee with everybody else in the room, you get a new document with new language. So it doesn't happen very often, but it certainly does in a charged political environment. So that being said, we were all watching the committee to see what kind of amendments were going to be proposed. And the night before the hearing came the oh, boo.
I know where this
I'm
is
sure-
going.
Yeah.
I should have some scary music playing, like, ooh.
Yeah, really, that would be perfect, right? And so it was.
Yeah.
The Miller Amendment came out, and it
Mhm.
basically tried to put finished products under the jurisdiction of the USDA. This is a huge problem because the USDA is agriculture, FDA is finished product. So not only did they have this cross-jurisdictional conflict, but then it charges the USDA to put a limit on finished products, right? And these are the same folks that have a 0.3% for compliance. That's their job, right? So we just alleviated a lot of the testing burden to just come back and add a new layer completely inappropriately, right? With this cross-jurisdictional issue at the feet of the USDA. The other thing that the Miller Amendment did is it tries to impose limits on cannabinoid production, right? So I'm going to pull up some of my notes because this is where it gets very, very exciting. When we start to put in limits on THC outside of the 0.3%, and we've worked very hard to be able to get a 0.3%. This is why the laboratory accreditation is such a big deal, right? Because we've had burden on the farmers and the departments of agriculture. It's been very overwhelming and costly, both for farmers as well as the departments, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we start looking at the Farm Bill and Miller amendments, we start to question, well, how is this actually benefiting farmers when we begin to lay on top of it ever more regulation? And for me, the most serious concern is that we've begun to kind of blur the lines again between what is industrial hemp, what is cannabinoid hemp, and then what are these semi-synthetics that are under-regulated, right? And that's a huge problem. How many millennia have we been eating hemp grain, right?
Yep, exactly. You're hitting it right on the head.
Yeah. And so this is where the Miller Amendment, in my opinion, became quite dangerous because it once again blurs those lines. And I think the last time we talked, Holly, remind me, it was when we were having this conversation about Colorado specific legislation, where they were taking a tincture and saying it has to have a concentration ratio between CBD and THC. And the only way my farmers could actually make that happen with their years of genetics, devoting themselves to growing a plant with specific properties, right? That broad spectrum hemp that they cultivated literally with love over years would then have to be diluted with CBD, isolated CBD, in order to meet these. And it's the antithesis of why so many of my farmers and producers have hemp grows, right? This is what led them to become hemp farmers. And so again, one more time in policy, but now at the federal level, we should really be paying attention to this, that our hemp is not gas station hemp, right? So we still have a lot of work to do. And then here's where it gets exciting. So usually amendments are voted on one at a time. However, there was a block vote. So all of the amendments were considered at one time. You couldn't defeat a single amendment. It was either all of them or none of them. And of course, there were good amendments in there. And the other thing that was quite shocking is that they also did a voice vote, which literally means, say aye, nay, all those abstaining, right? So Chairman Thompson had the ability to call out what his perception was of passage or failure. And I will just say that it was dicey business. Just listening to it, you were like, what just
happened?
Literally, what just happened? And so politically, it is a very specific strategy when you don't want to have some pass and some fail. And in my opinion, it gave Chairman Thompson the ability to come out with a press release the next day and say, the Farm Bill has passed through the committee, which they very much did, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So here we are. What does that actually mean for the rest of the Farm Bill? And there's some other amendments that have already come forward that will be considered probably on the floor side. We'll see when that happens, because our Congress has just gone on summer break. What that means,
Nice.
is that they're going to be gone until the fall session begins. What are we going to be doing this fall?
Trying to plant our fields with what? We don't know.
That too, right? That too. But the politics of this fall are not going to be thinking about the Farm Bill, right? That's not where we're going to be. And in my opinion, and the opinion of many of my colleagues, it just means that it is definitely the 2025 Farm Bill, and that we're not going to be moving forward with much of the amendments until after they come back, certainly until after they come back from session, and more likely not until we get new Congress, right? And perhaps new president. Well, I guess we will be getting a new president one way or the other.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah. So that's kind of a little bit about the process, where we are now. And there is a new amendment that we can talk about, but I wanted to pause for a second because that was so much. that was so much to share with you. And I just
that was fantastic, Hunter. You are really breaking it down into the ABCs. And I mean, I just don't know this Miller Amendment. It was a shock to me. It was like the next day, and I was there like, what does this mean for the hemp farmer? And I don't know. I'm just there like, what advocacy group do I need to join to kind of turn this around? Because folks just aren't really sure. They're like, we're standing on quicksand out here waiting for this Farm Bill to come out. And unfortunately, whenever the Farm Bill first came out with the whole loophole of the synthetics and the Delta 8 coming out, and that's hemp derived, but it's synthesized, and it wasn't intentional. That was not the intent of the Farm Bill. But people have been driving buses through that loophole, laughing all the way to the bank. Now I understand that, we on the medical side of things, people are looking for some kind of relief. And if all they can get their hands on is that synthetic Delta 8, I kind of feel for them as well. But so I'm kind of torn between the farmer part of me saying, hey, that's not what we're all about. And then the medical side of me, who I'm also an advocate for medical, is like, that's all folks can get their hands on. That's the only kind of medicine that they can get relief from. It's not the best thing, out there for them. I believe in whole plant medicine, not the synthesized stuff. And but at the same time, if that's all they can get their hands on, I really kind of feel for the medical folks out there dealing with chronic pain, chronic anxiety, and so forth, that they're looking for relief for. So I'm kind of like, dang, did these folks just kind of set us back? I mean, because now we're struggling to, as a hemp farmer, we're struggling to justify and clarify we're industrial hemp. We have nothing to do. You can't smoke and get high off of industrial hemp. You might get a headache, but it's not smokable. And we're trying really hard to revive an industry that's been kind of put on a back burner and stigmatized. And there's just so much that the hemp plant can do agriculturally and for the society, grow, building and fuels and biofuels and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, I don't know, this Miller Amendment just kind of threw me for a loop for sure.
Yeah. And you're not alone. And Holly, I love that you brought that up, because patient access is a huge part of why many of us became hemp enthusiasts in the first place. For me, it really came from the sustainable development side of it, right? We talked about building materials, biocomposite plastics, textiles, like all the amazing industrial applications in the time where bio-based plastics are very sexy and all the rage. And that's wonderful. I'm very enthusiastic about that. It's probably where I spend a majority of my time. But to see the medical community, and especially our minor medical community and their parents, be left without regulated products, and that's what is the problem, right? And I think everybody recognizes that. But what we've done is we're in the process of cutting down the entire forest for a branch that, you know, went rogue. But you're right.
Exactly.
Literal buses through those gray areas, which in my opinion is probably the American way, right? That's
yeah. They saw that and they were poised. I was surprised at how quickly, once that farm bill hit, these vape shops had Delta 8 and they were, you know, making decent bank off of it for quite a while. So I don't know. That was a little suspect to me as well, is that how quickly those things just popped up on the shelves, and you know, it was almost like they were poised to kind of run buses through that loophole. But it's almost like there needed to be some kind of consumer safety legislation, if anything, instead of coming after hemp and the farm bill and industrial hemp through the farm bill. Just my thought.
I mean, that's a really great thought, Holly. And I'm going to rewind a little bit, because where we are today is definitely not where we thought we were going to be in 2014 with the Farm Bill. That was very much to open markets and to do research. And then 2018 is when the barn doors just flew open, if you will, without the regulatory oversight of our biggest agency, right? The FDA. This is where, in my opinion, and it's frustrating because the hemp industry is well known to be tumultuous and a little bit backstabby.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, just a brief pause there, but we're not focusing on the right adversary. Yeah. And that adversary is absolutely our agencies, who are still, they're scared. They are still having their madness, right? They're like, we have to control THC to limits lower than heavy metals that we know are toxic, that we know have negative impacts on us. We're focused on the wrong things. And unfortunately, because the FDA, and for those of you that don't have this information just stuck in their brain, I can't get rid of it. So I have to share it with you all, so it doesn't make me crazy, right? But
bring it.
October of 2018, right? That's when we got the GRAS notice for humans to be able to consume hemp seed byproducts, right? So hemp seed hearts, oil, protein powder. Wonderful. 2 months later, December of 2018, is when Epidiolex got approved. And from that moment on, the FDA has said that a drug preclusion prevents them from doing work on CBD. That was their first statement. Their next statement very recently has been that they don't know how to regulate CBD. And everybody just take a pause for a second and recognize how does the FDA that regulates foods and drugs not know how to regulate this product? Especially when we consider that the states are moving forward, because these products are everywhere, right? And it's typically the states that do enforcement. FDA, federal agencies set the policy. States have to do the enforcement. States are very concerned about consumer health, right? And here we are. We're very concerned about consumer health. This was the things that kept me up late at night, was that someone's going to go rogue and we're going to have a hemp product that then makes people sick. That literally was a nightmare of mine. And here we are. So what do we do about it? And I'm not sure that I have all the answers, right? But I think that collectively, as an industry, it's time for us to come together and demand regulation. I don't know any other product that's like, please regulate us. Somebody regulate us. And the states are trying to
Keep us safe.
keep us safe, keep us growing, keep us from having addictions, right? Give us
Yes.
the tools to treat ourselves and keep ourselves well. So, and that was not intended to lead to conspiracy thoughts, but it is a good question when we think of why it is that we got grain products, Epidiolex, and now no federal regulation for CBD products. It's very suspicious.
It is very suspicious. On that note, I'm going to take another really quick break. I am on Citizen Green TV, and that's a veteran channel on Roku. So I like to do a little tribute to the female veterans out there. So hang tight, and we'll be right back. Hello, and we're back, everyone. Love that little tribute that put together for the veteran females out there. We are with Miss Hunter Buffington with Ag Policy Solutions, and she's really breaking it down for us, folks, as far as the new farm bill that's coming out in 2025, it looks like now. And I'm going to go ahead and give the floor over to Miss Buffington. I think we were going to talk about something else as we came back from break.
Yeah, we're just talking about the FDA and how regulation works or doesn't work, right? And some more tidbits for your listeners. I mentioned reefer madness as one of the things that I think is really coming back. And you and I were really talking about the concerns over patient access, right? How do we make sure that our patients do have access to the legal medicine that they need and to supplemental products that we've really been regulating for decades. And most of the regulation for supplements happens under DAZE, which is about self-regulation for supplements. And I can pull that up in a second, give you guys links to that information as well. But the point that I'm making is that we do have mechanisms for this regulation and this oversight. But I'm going to share something with you guys. And this is not my idea, a colleague shared this with me, and I sat back and I said, whoa, seriously. So when we think about what's happening in state by state regulation and access, what has become really obvious, and like I said, when my colleague pointed this out, I was like, what? So the states that have moved forward with legal marijuana have very limited gas station markets. They're still there, but they're not the $1 billion state economies on these products that we're seeing in states that have said, we'll never legalize marijuana, but now have these thriving $1 billion industries. Florida is a really obvious and recent example when the legislature said, we're going to ban these products, right? And Governor DeSantis said, no, we can't ban these products. And it's because of the GDP. It really is a $1 billion industry in Florida. And so when you start seeing this side by side, it makes you go, well, how are we going to regulate this then? Is the only path forward federal approval for legal cannabis, legal marijuana? And that becomes a very interesting question when you look back at the agency, and what you hear from the agency is a zero tolerance of THC. Okay, what does zero mean to a chemist, right? Because zero to us means none, right? Like none. But when we start talking about a zero tolerance in a chemistry world, to use 0.3% as an example, 0.3 is 3,000 parts per million. And I'm going to use parts per million because it's a really nice way to, right, very, very small, right? It's a really nice way to compare these products. So a therapeutic concentration in most of your tinctures is going to be around 1,000 parts per million of THC in a single dose. So you can have multiple amounts of that. You can rub that on your body 15 times, eat it, consume it, smoke it, and never going to get to any kind of toxicity. We've never been able to prove toxicity with these products. Okay, so think about that. And then when I say to you that hemp seed products for animal feed right now, there is a very big argument between the folks that have been working on getting it approved, the FDA regulators, and then my farmers, because my farmers work with biological contaminants, chemicals concern, heavy metals. These are not new parts of the agriculture industry, right, Holly? These are things we do with every lot, with every crop. And animal feed creates a margin where if you have an imperfect crop that's not good enough to go into a food product, you still have a place to send it. There's still money to be made, and it creates some safe security. I don't know how to describe it, but at least it's another margin. You're not losing your entire crop. So when they come back and FDA said, we want a 2 ppm threshold, the original proposal was at 10 parts per million, but they said, no, we wanted it 2. And that's lower than lead, lower than arsenic, and the same amount as cadmium. Only mercury is going to be lower than that 2 ppm, right? So that's, and again, to compare, 0.3,000. So 2 is 0.002, right, percent. Yeah. I feel like that's enough zeros. I mean, I don't, it's really confusing, right?
Like, and again, broccoli has more THC in it than,
It's a decent question, right? What are we really afraid of? And this is why I say I feel like we've come backwards to where we're having a reefer madness moment in American history again. And then here's the other thing, and I mentioned this a little bit, and I haven't gone into a lot of detail with the Miller Amendment. I mean, on the worst case scenario, it could limit THC in any hemp product that we find. And so there's a very real risk. But in my opinion, it's this perception risk with the legislators that we really have to embrace. And I would challenge your listeners, especially in Illinois, because that's where Representative Miller is from, to reach out, educate your legislators, because they really don't know. But what they're hearing is save the children from D8, right? They really don't know their patient community, right? So these are incredibly small amounts. And what we've done is we've created the misperception that they need to be treated with this much concern. And the last point that I want to make is that in addition to lowering the THC number, the CBD number was added, making the United States and AFCO, American Association Feed Control Officials, and the FDA Center for Veterinary Medicine the only jurisdiction in the world to put a limit for CBD in an animal feed byproduct, let alone a hemp seed byproduct. And they set it at 20. So again, below heavy metal of concern. I'm going to completely check my numbers because I believe I know this off the top of my head, but this is not something to ever get wrong. But if I remember correctly, the allowable limit from AFCO for lead is 30 parts per million. Arsenic is 50 parts per million. And those are allowable limits in our feed products. So we're talking about an order of magnitude smaller for THC, which again, we have no medical data of any toxicity. And it's been a problem. We've been trying so hard to find toxicity, because if we could just do that, then we could say, here you go, FDA, here's that number. And then we could begin to operate under it. But because we have not actually been able to establish toxicity with these cannabinoids, it's been much more challenging to do the regulatory work. And so
are you thinking more research would help with that? More peer-reviewed studies, or what do you think can change that?
Yeah, so a couple things. We definitely need more research, much like when I was talking about certified weed, and we're 10 years old as a new American commodity, right? So there's a huge amount of research that needs to happen just on genetics, right? Again, take some of the risk from the farmers, make sure that we can, in fact, grow 1 million acres of fiber and 1 million acres of grain close to where there's processing facilities. So that means growing grain in the grain basket, right? Growing fiber in places that have grown fiber over their history. Wyoming is not necessarily one of those, but when we, right? I mean, that's definitely a more of a Southern opportunity, lots of excitement from tobacco farmers in that fiber market. But Texas and Wyoming are moving forward with fiber. And why not? Because 25,000 uses, we're going to get close to being perfectly adapted for one of those uses wherever we're grown. But if we are so afraid of cannabinoids that we're willing to paint this picture that we should be afraid of them, that they're more toxic than heavy metals, I think we're walking the industry back decades. I mean, before 2014. And so that's what I think is really of concern. And I want to also shout out to the hemp industry. Kids, let's get it together. We are in this together, right? And the biggest reason that they've, in my opinion, been able to continue to do this is that we're not working together. So let's work together, right? Let's make sure that we know what it is our pain points are. Let's go to our adversaries, take that message directly to them. Let's educate our legislators, because when the legislators hear hemp, they're not thinking about cannabis anymore. They were, right? They might have been thinking about CBD, but that's not what they're thinking about anymore. And it's dangerous for us, right?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. We have our hemp license here in Wyoming, our little operation. We have our hemp license, and it costs us $750 a year to have our hemp license, and it's to grow and to process. But we only have 80 acres, and processors, these hemp processing plants, want to see thousands of acres. So quite honestly, I would just be using the hemp to do my own soil regeneration and doing it for my own, feeding my animals the grain and using the fiber for whatever I can kind of loom it into. My operation is so small that, but at the same time, I do see a future for hemp here in Wyoming, and I hope it takes off, and we'll see what happens here for sure. But you're absolutely right. You got to be smart. We all got to be smart about, where we're growing this stuff and what it's for and whatnot. And just because, it'd be kind of cool to grow hemp, you're going to have a special kind of seed for where you're at, your elevation, your soil quality, the amount of water, and the quality of your water too. There's a lot of things that you kind of have to dial in to have a really good product. So, wow, Hunter, I'm having such an awesome time with you. I wish I had more time. I know there's something you wanted to kind of leave us with, a little teaser. So let's have it.
Yeah, thanks for that, Holly. And we did chat about this a little bit before all you joined us, because I'm very excited. I have been representing farmers since 2014 and have been very protective of you guys, because without farmers, we have nothing. And I'm not just talking about hemp, right? Like food. I like food. So thankfully, we have farmers, right, that are willing to grow that food, and livestock producers who do that work every day, in spite of the challenges that we've just talked about. Because again, this is not actually new to hemp. This is across the agriculture supply chain that we have these same issues. But I'm really excited to share with you and your listeners, Holly, that there is a new hemp farming association. Now, it's not the first one. Some of you may remember that there was a Hemp Growers Association, but this is now the National Hemp Growers Association. And we have farmers from Colorado, of course, not anybody in Wyoming yet, Holly, but also Kentucky. We've got some folks, quite a few folks in Texas, imagine that. We also have Nevada, South Dakota, and I'm missing one. I said Kentucky. Who am I missing? I'll think of it in like 2 seconds. I'm literally categorizing all of my farmers by face, which is a very inefficient way to do it. But we have 6 states. And part of the reason I'm so excited about this is that we were born just under 60 days ago. And it was a transition from the Texas Hemp Growers Association. This is why I have a few farmers in Texas, into this National Hemp Growers Association. But we've already been active because I have been representing them in policy for quite some time. So they weighed in on the Farm Bill. We were able to have those meetings with the House Ag staffers and share the perspective of the farmer, which they're really hungry for. I'm sure you can imagine there's a lot of advocacy groups. Some of them are incredibly loud. And it's always a challenge for me because I represent my constituents. Do I have opinions? Yes, of course I do. And my job is to share my concerns and my opinions and educate my farmers, and then stop talking and listen to them where their pain points are, and then be the person that can take their voice to the legislators, to those staffers who I gave the shout out to earlier. And so we did have Farm Bill recommendations. We had fit for purpose recommendations. We came out strongly against the Miller Amendment. All of those things happened right as we were actually forming into a new national association. And so that's really exciting. There hasn't been a hemp farmer association in a couple of years. And what better way to protect farmers than to give them a voice, make sure they have a seat at the table. Again, you guys are the bravest folks I know. I'm amazed all the time. So I wanted to share that and my
So
enthusiasm.
out of the darkness comes a light.
Yeah. And I think, and it's been years. I mean, this is not the first farm bill, right, that we've participated in now, 2018. Most of my constituents were pretty active. But I will say that I think there's a real need for the farmers to come together. I have fewer farmers that I represent now than ever before since 2014 Farm Bill. And a lot of that is because of the market over production and then the shrinking of the industry. And then here in Colorado, I lost 2 farmers in one day when they said that they would have to dilute their product with isolated CBD. They were like, that's the antithesis of why we're here. And so my goal with this new committee is to start growing farmers again and really make sure that hemp takes its rightful place in this new bio-based products atmosphere that there's so much enthusiasm for. So I'm really proud of them that they're finally like, all right, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, have some idea of why they galvanized, just not feeling like they had that place at the table and no one was listening. So I'm excited about that.
I love it. Congratulations. That's fantastic. Because in doing this show, I have talked to people in the market out there, and hemp is in the building code now. So people are hungry for building grade hemp, and so they're like they're really hungry for it, and they're having to look overseas for that building grade hemp. And I'm there like, holy cow. I mean, that's a whole industry that's opening up to industrial hemp right underneath our noses. So if we can get our kind of pound our plowshares into swords and make something happen, it's definitely going to be worth it in the end. And Hunter, you are a warrior, a hemp warrior goddess, and I am so proud and honored to have you on as a guest. Please come back and bring back some of your new committee members so we can highlight them and showcase what your hard work is doing. And if you're looking for a Wyoming hemp farmer, look no further, girl.
Excellent. I'll be taking care of that right after this because we have an incredible amount of power. But to your point, those plowshares into swords, no one's going to do that for us, right? Nope. So we have to come together and really do it for the right reasons. I think there's, and those right reasons don't mean that we can't make money. They have to include making money, but we also have to take care of one another, think about our patient communities, but no pressure. We have an ever-growing planet to feed. Hemp grain is a great reason to think positively about that. And then to your point, Holly, that from my perspective, it's kind of ironic to hear you say that because the work that I do globally, I'm always hearing those markets that are working on building hemp houses say to us, no other country has as many arable farming acres as the US. They need us to get it together because they can't grow enough to build the houses that they want to build. That's an amazing problem to have. And we're really behind in building hemp houses, to your point. So
yes,
those markets are there, and hungry is a great way to describe them.
Fantastic. Definitely. Well, I'm going to have to leave it on that note, and my door is always open. And actually, I really, really want you to come back. We need to, there's just so much that we can talk about for hours on this subject. But we got to leave it on that note. And until next time, stay safe out there, folks.